Adventure Ho, Illumineers, and welcome back to another episode of the DuckTale Dads podcast. I am one of your hosts, Mack, joined again by Ryan and Nathaniel. The DuckTale Dads are healthy, we hope, at least for this week. We are all back on the mend from our household sicknesses from last week. Both with just kids probably bringing back a lot of stuff from daycare and school and whatnot, but we all persevered through the holiday season as well, and we're back ready to talk more Lorcana as we dive into the holiday season. Again, kind of one thing I want to make note is, Nathaniel, during your hosting duties last episode, you may note that our episodes are now on video. The problem was last week's episode, the video didn't work. So sorry about that. Our goal is to now have these episodes available to you on YouTube for video. If you want to put faces to names, we have that option now for you as we're trying to expand our content. But a little bit of an oopsies on our bad. The upload just didn't work. So we're still very much in the infancy with the video aspect of this podcast, but we're working towards it. Hopefully this holiday season brings us some more tech and our video uploads and just sound and quality of the podcast will continue to improve as we get past the holiday season. But with that, let's move into what's new in your world. So, Ryan, let's start with you. What is new in your world, sir?
Thanks, Mac. Yeah, finally getting healthy, which is a huge, huge bonus. We made it through our Thanksgiving weekend. We spent Saturday with one side of the family and got to play with all those cousins, and then spent Sunday with the other side of the family and got to play with all those cousins. And it is quite the delight to be able to watch your little one start to actively, imaginatively play with their cousins and have those positive, happy, joyful giggles running around the house every time you're at one of these family gatherings. It is a true pleasure in life. Plus the great food and the great company is always a bonus. A lot of food, and I have to contribute that good food to some of my recovery, I would imagine. On the Lorcana front, just been trying to, we'll talk a little bit more about this, but trying to capitalize on some of the holiday pricing around trading card games and finding some good deals and making sure that I'm filling out the play sets that I want to fill out for the decks that I want to try and play a little bit or have some fun with at home. Finding some success with it, finding some challenges with it, and it's always a work in progress, but it's always fun to keep testing these new decks and playing with the new cards, building out all the new decks, and finding that purple is truly the color for me. It is a fantastic color. It's a very strong color right now, and it will be fun to keep playing Lorcana for the near future at least. Nathaniel, what's new in your world?
It is officially sledding season in Minnesota, and I am loving it. I have probably spent 7 hours the last 3 days sledding with my kids. As soon as my oldest got off the bus, we pretty much walked in, grabbed a snack, and then went right out to the hill on the side of our house. And I've kind of built a jump at the base. And my oldest wears a helmet when he's sledding because he got a concussion a couple of years ago. So he is required to wear a helmet when he sleds. And so it's just like a ski helmet. So it still looks kind of cool. But so I wear mine to kind of like in solidarity with my kid. But yeah, so when he like flies off the jumps, I'm like, we're good. Like, even if he hits his head, like he's got a really good helmet on. So, I feel better about letting my pretty young kid like go down a hill pretty fast and still hit a jump. So that's been just like a total blast. I'm like fully invested in that. This child of winter, loving winter. So, that's been a lot of fun. Despite the fact that, like, I'm pretty sure this morning walking my oldest to the bus stop, it was like 2 degrees. So, like, kind of like offensively cold out. But you know what? You make the most of it, right? We've been doing this for a long time. From a Lorcana perspective, getting excited for not this upcoming weekend, but the following weekend. We'll talk about this a little more next week, but the Infinity event coming up. Haven't done any testing. Probably won't. Probably just going to send it like my kid does on the hill. But from a kind of current state and kind of as we gear up in the final month here prior to set champs, have been doing a lot more testing with my Purple Steel list, have been loving it, but have been finding that as for much of the last year, it struggles into one ink combination in particular that Ryan has made sure to remind me every time I play him, and that is Blurple. So it's rearing its ugly head in playtesting. Once again, still trying to crack that code. You can't beat everything, but man, I'd love to know like what is the narrow route I could take. Specifically in a best of three. Maybe when you're on the draw, especially. But having fun with that, right? Like there's so much time. We have a full month before set champs where I think the three of us are really looking at our first opportunity to play anything even semi-competitive. So at this point, it's kind of just fun to just play the game and get some reps in and get punished for things now. So hopefully it doesn't happen in January. Mac, what's new in your world?
Yeah, to your point about winter, the thing about Minnesota, right? What people who like our listeners who aren't from here, they might think, oh, from like basically August to June, it's like all snow, but that's not the case. Typically speaking, in December is when the snow starts, but over the last like 4 or 5 years, they've been like very not snowy weather. It's been not snowy seasons, and especially around Thanksgiving, I think it hasn't snowed until like December 20th, it felt like, for the longest time in the state of Minnesota. We've now had, at least at my neck of the woods, 2 6-inch snowstorms already in the past week. So we've gotten some good snow already, and it's felt a little bit different, coming from a Minnesotan, to have snow at this time of the year. And especially with young kids, it's also really fun for them to just be out and try and build a snowman when the snow is not sticky enough yet. But so that was fun. They were like, Dad, just build a snowman. And as it's like falling through my glove and it's just like snowflakes and not really sticky where you can kind of roll it up into a ball. So that was fun to try and power through. But yeah, we've taken full advantage in our household as well when it comes to the snowy weather. But in another avenue, it's been super busy over the Thanksgiving week for us. My wife and I have hosted Thanksgiving. This was now our 3rd year with my side of the family. I love hosting, so I host a Halloween party every year. We like to have people over to just play yard games from time to time. We grill out and have board game nights with a lot of our friends. So I just love hosting and having people over and being in control when it comes to that aspect. So it was a success. People said the food was good, so that's all I really care about. But also over the weekend, we went to, my wife and I the night before, went to Zootopia 2 upon release. Highly recommend. So not only is Disney Lorcana an avenue for me to just get all things Disney, we're very much into the Disney movies. We do a movie night every Friday in our household, and it ends up, I would say, 9 times out of 10 being a Disney movie. But my wife and I had a date night. We were able to go out and see Zootopia 2. If for those with young children, you should go, even though we didn't bring our own because they wouldn't sit still yet. But other than that, it was a lot of family fun. For me, set 10, as excited as I've been for set 10, I have not really dipped any toes into it besides our Team Sealed event because of the prices of the specific cards that I am looking for. That being Cinderella, Goliath, a lot of these legendaries that I know a lot of people are in search of. So because of that, I have not played a single core constructed game of set 10 up to this point. I was starting to maybe dip my toes into it before we started recording online. But just not having the physical cards really didn't, inspire to even try testing yet until I have the cards available to know what I'm going to run or have the ability to run. But now that we're starting to see some of the prices in the market change, and we'll get into that a little bit about what we've been noticing too, it's kind of ignited or maybe just ignited my drive for set 10 and to really dive into play testing for this set. Not to say that I'm like not excited about the game. I think I'm more excited about the game than ever at this point, just because I think it's a really fun meta, and in the sense that like it might not be the perfect meta, but it's the meta that it's trending in a way where I prefer to have the game, and that's just multiple deck options, multiple tier 1, tier 2 options, and we're trending towards that direction. Is what I've noticed. It makes me really excited for the game and the future of this game moving forward. Just haven't had time for it. And now I'm starting to feel like I have time, or at least everything's starting to match into my budget. The what's new in my world on the Lorcana front is the fire is growing within my Lorcana tastes to get better at the game. So I'm ready to go, and now that the turkey in my belly is over with, I can now move that fire and that hunger towards the game of Lorcana. How was that analogy, boys?
That was incredible. Thank you for indulging us with that. I do want to say I am a huge fan of a very wide meta, because nothing feels better than showing up to a set champs or a league night or anything like that and playing a different deck combination in every single one of your rounds. And it's very boring when you show up and you're like, oh, I get to play the same deck combination in every one of my rounds, and you just know that's going to happen, and there's just like this sense of dread that washes over me of, oh, I get to play it again. Great. I hope I hit the same exact line that I hit last time, knowing it's mathematically impossible to do that. So I am a huge fan of the wide meta. I am all on board with that shit.
So yeah, one of the things we wanted to touch on with this is what we got into, or what I hinted at, was TCG, and not only TCG, but just like pricing in general, when we've noticed over the course of this past week, because I think times are changing when it comes to costs. Hopefully, I think a lot of us are hoping for that. Nathaniel, this was, I know, a topic you wanted to talk about, or were interested in talking about, especially in not only the leaks leading up to this. We've noticed how like frustrating it's been that the best cards are just so almost unobtainable, but now it's getting there. So I'll let you kind of lead the show on what we want to discuss for holiday pricing trends you've noticed, and then I think Ryan and I will dive right in and provide our input as well.
Yeah, so I think there were really two things that I kind of thought of with this particular topic, right? We're kind of in this window between Thanksgiving and like the end of the year. And a year ago, I remember making a few trades for certain cards. I think I did like a foil Sisu flipped for a couple regular Sisus and a couple just other things as I was doing some deck building. And I was noticing that the prices were coming down on like everything, it felt like. Now, granted, from a timing perspective, we weren't dealing with rotation. We did a very wide card pool at the time. We were in the Azurite C meta. And it felt like everything was coming down. Just didn't matter the chapter, right? And so I remember thinking like, that's kind of curious. And I'd seen some discussion online about like TCGs in general. During the holidays, the prices of the cards themselves seem to go down. And I'm not sure that that's necessarily true for every TCG. This was just some of the discussion I saw online. And so I kind of waited for that this year to see like, hey, is there a way to maybe time this out? And again, we are not here to provide any type of financial advice of any kind, right? But I'd noticed that a year ago. And you know, it's interesting this time because now that we have a more like minimal card pool, it feels like the specific cards, particularly with results of big tournaments happening, are still holding some of that value. For example, Demona, right? Like she started out at like, I think around like 30-ish, and then started kind of gradually dip as more supply entered the market. And I actually ended up, like a couple weeks ago, I just was like, oh wow, I'm finding them for $16. So I bought 3. And I just checked just now, and they're back up to over 30. So it seems like a rule that you might expect to find. It's not necessarily true for every card, and I think rotation's probably playing into that a little bit with specific cards being super powerful and still very new and everything. One of the other things I was kind of surprised of from like just this specific card game in general too is I was like really wanting to get some sweet like sealed deals over Black Friday or Cyber Monday. And I just wasn't really seeing much of that. I think the best thing I saw was like 50% off like a Floodborn like starter deck. Like, you know, okay. But like not relevant for us like at all. So like I was hoping for like literally any type of little thing. But I just wasn't seeing anything out there, especially not for like newer stuff for Lorcana. There might have been some deals here and there Cyber Monday, like 30% off like a playmat or something like that. But as far as like the cards themselves, it doesn't seem like that's really a thing. So the other thing I did notice that I think is through maybe today was TCG Player was offering like a 10% promo if you bought some cards. So I got like 2 cards off of it that I was kind of looking for, which did happen to be cards that have come down in price. So maybe the rule is if the card's been around for like a while, this is a good time of year to start maybe thinking about it in this like November, December timeline. I think obviously meta relevance will always play a part in pricing, but I do think there's still something about this month in particular where, like, if you've had a card that you've maybe had in mind, just keep a close eye on how that's trending, because there is a chance that in this specific window in December, it might actually become more palatable from a pricing perspective. Again, I can't speak to newer cards because I think those are still holding pretty strong. Like, I still cannot believe I'm seeing Demona for as much, and I think Hades is creeping up closer to like 35 now. Yay, playsets, as another resident purple player.
Yeah, that price point is quite high and climbing, it seems. We talked about it last week, I think, of the like affordability, or maybe 2 weeks ago now, of the TCG in general. And I think it's kind of trending. And there's definitely budget options, right? There's definitely options to not play these legendaries as a full set of 4. If you're only able to get 1 or 2, or maybe you get lucky and you pack 1 or 2, maybe it's not worth it to then go out and buy them, but there's definitely ways to craft a deck around not having those specific cards, and ways to kind of like try to replace it with similar effects. So just that those legendaries seem to do it much more efficiently than having to replace like 4 or 5 cards for those 2 cards that you may be missing, or 8 cards for the 4 that you'd be cutting out. So I'm also seeing the TCG holiday pricing kind of fluctuate and help a little bit with the market. I think the Disney store was doing like 30% off orders over 150, and so that included any like Lorcana product that they had on that store as well. I think it was also then like 20% on orders over 100. So if you just bought a booster box at list price, then you'd get 20% off. If you bought a booster box plus anything else, you'd get 30% off pretty much. So there was that out there. Otherwise, just looking at singles and trying to maximize value on singles is kind of the name of the game right now. I'm trying to find some Cinderella copies, and that is proving difficult. Even though it's come down from where it started. No longer a $50 legendary, but it's still sitting in that like $35 to $40 range. It's like hard to bite the bullet on. Hard to do that.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on I've gathered more thoughts over the course of the last couple of weeks as we've started to dive down this road even further and more thorough when it comes to pricing in the game, especially with new players. And we talked a lot of it with rotation and whatnot, how it's kind of like restarted the game, so to speak, kind of in a micro way. One of these things that we talked about, especially during our hype video with this set, when we saw these astronomical prices for these legendary cards that we knew were going to be very good, and that's kind of the reason why they were expensive. But one of the things that we preached was like what we do for our own input and staying in the game without breaking the bank, so to speak, is preaching patience. And I think this is kind of a perfect example of that patience paying off, if you're able to wait for it. I think the benefit, unless you're playing in a CCQ, which happened over this past weekend, or if you take a trip to Singapore, apparently, and go play a DLC in Singapore, there really isn't much going on in terms of mid-tier and large events right now. So if you were patient and not playing in a lot of these events that just aren't available, it gives you an opportunity to hold, at least what I would try to do, hold and wait to purchase cards, to wait till the market dips, or until I actually am like getting ready myself to prep for this set, for example. But yeah, a lot of these legendaries that we've noticed have dipped. Now, some of them have started to creep back up just due to the nature of some of these tournaments. I think it's inevitable that not everything will go down. Some will go up based on what we started to see now that we're a little bit like around a month into this meta, right? Hades, the purple legendaries being an example, right? But Cinderella, that was the Dumbo of this set, right? Or supposed to be. And now it's gone down by quite a bit on a TCG pricing level. So I think patience is truly important for what we've noticed upon new release. If you're able to do it, that's something where we've saved a buck. But instead of getting into this like repetitive kind of pricing input that I think we've got into over the past couple of weeks, another perspective I want to bring and I want to get your thoughts on is like, I'm struggling with FOMO right now. Like, I want all of the good cards. Obviously, I've alluded to, I want the Cinderellas and I want the Goliaths. I've done pretty well on waiting for those. I've pulled 2 Goliaths, so that's actually felt good. But I've traded for 1 Cinderella, and I'm in the works of trying to trade for the others and getting rid of some enchanted cards that I no longer find valuable in my collection, and being okay with that. So I think I'm good there from like trying to get those set 10 legendaries. But I've alluded to it to you guys off pod. Like, one of the big things of this Sapphire Steel list is the rise of other cards from previous sets that have now really taken a hold. And one of that being the legendary Namari. And we were talking about it, how like Namari now is on average, let's say $30. And 8 sets ago, or during set 8, it was maybe in the teens. And it's like, and I was thinking to myself and talking to you guys about it, it's like, why, during that time, I remember sitting there like, this legendary's gotta be good. When I read it, it feels good. A 5-cost inkable, the abilities seem really good. For steel, it allows you to filter your deck every single turn. And it just only gets stronger because your discard is inevitably just going to keep growing and growing and growing. How is this card not expensive? And now we're seeing that, I think, now 2 sets later, of how strong this card can be. And sure, maybe the meta in set 8 didn't really make it a staple. But like, eventually, right, that's one of those cards where you feel like is going to be good. And now I have the FOMO. I feel bad. And it hurts, like from a finance and cost perspective. How are you guys doing on like trying to hold on to cards that you think are going to be good in later sets, or are you guys just okay with just giving up cards and it is what it is? Or is that the mindset that you've kind of lived off by? Like, how do you guys deal with this? Because right now, for me personally, it's hard, and I think I'm not the only one out there, but I know maybe you have some tips that you can help not only me, but people of our community.
Yeah, I think I've tried to... Yes, you can always try to time everything perfectly, but like generally I'm trying to focus on like one deck I really want to play, try to look at those cards. If there's a bunch of like super expensive cards, I think the tough thing, Mac, that you're dealing with is there's so many good legendary cards that are in your deck list, right? Like a lot of these purple decks tend to be pretty heavy. Like there are legendaries in them, but there's lots of like really good, like rare and under, actually. Like not even that many like super rare cards, but like rare and under are like relevant in them. And so that tends to help out, I think, a lot with that. I think there is probably a world where like certain cards where if you know it's a legendary and it's like close to being good, it's worth maybe just holding on to. For example, I had 2 Tianas, like the Amber legendary. Is she legendary? Yes, from Azurite Sea. And I think the card was selling for like $4. And I just like had him in a binder. And then when set 9 came out and she became like super, super relevant, I was able to like flip a couple of those for, a Dumbo that I needed to take to a DLC. So like that felt like a really good opportunity for me to like trade cards I wasn't going to play with that are now at like what felt like a higher point in their life cycle and get a good deal. I kind of thought the same for, I have a couple Clarabelles. I just don't know that I'm ever really going to be a green player. Right, Mac?
Again.
Never green. But like, I did think about, hey, is now the time to like flip some Clarabelles for like some Hades or something, right? Like, could I do that? So I think it's tough because you're looking for so many really good cards. I think depending on the deck list that you're running, it can be a little bit more palatable if it's just like a single playset of one expensive card versus like 3 playsets of expensive cards. And now it's like, yeah, I need to drop $300 to play this deck, beyond what I've already invested in it, right? So I think that's probably a big part of it. I think the other part is like if you do have the flexibility of time, which we tend to say matters here, right? You can try to time out something that works out really well for you, where maybe it's starting to come down to a point that feels better, or a recent event happens that makes one of your cards that wasn't worth as much go up in value. I mean, we've seen like so many weird spikes with cards in the last 2 months alone. It's kind of wild. Like even Dumbo, like everybody was kind of on that hype train, right? And it was like $60 plus 70 even at like release, and then it dipped way down to like 35, and now it's back up to like 45. It's just all over the place. So I think it's kind of like setting a price that like feels good to you, and also depending on when you're looking to go play something, right? I think we've talked a lot about the difference that we've observed in like gearing up for set champs, which we usually see as kind of like our bigger opportunity locally to go play and be competitive. And that's, I think, the time where we would want to have as meta of a deck as you could hopefully manage, maybe with a couple minor holes that you could cover up with other cards. But ideally, it's a pretty good deck versus like when we were gearing up for the DLC, it was like, no, I have to have 4 Dumbos. Like I can't just replace that with 2 other cards. Like I will lose games to like this level of competition. And not to say like the local scene isn't good. The local Minnesota scene is extremely competitive. But I think like if you're thinking about like maxing out your opportunity to like perform, you would want to bring the best possible deck you could if it's going to be like a big tournament, like one that large, like a DLC.
I think the other thing that this creates an opportunity for, like I briefly mentioned, there's the opportunity to try to craft a deck around not having those cards, those expensive cards. And it's a great opportunity to really engage with the game, engage with the deck building process, and also engage with your local player base, right? If you have a local store that you go to and you're able to get to even a league night a month, or if you're able to talk to a group of players through Discord or something like that, most players in this game are open with their opinions and are going to tell you the honest truth. If you send them a deck list or strike up the conversation and ask them to look at your deck list and give you some suggestions, they're more than likely not going to intentionally steer you in the wrong direction. People seem to be very good-natured and good-willed in this Lorcana community, so a great opportunity to really engage with the game in that way and strike up those conversations with your local player base or with any players you may find online that you may be talking with, to try to really craft a deck without having those expensive legendary cards. And it is possible. It just does take some creative deck building and some dedicated play lines that you're committing to. Not as much flexibility in the deck usually, because those legendaries are designed to be strong as well. But it is definitely possible to create a very competitive deck without having full play sets of the expensive cards and just going with what you've pulled from like League Night packs that you've pulled open, or maybe you were able to get a trove and you got a couple of good legendaries out of there, and you made it to a sealed event at some point, just at like one event a month, and you made it a sealed event. Be able to like pull some interesting cards out of that, just to make it worthwhile. So I think it's a great opportunity to really engage with some of the more challenging and more of the creative mindset around the game, with creating deck lists that are still viable and can still be very strong and competitive, without obtaining playsets of those flexible, legendary, expensive cards.
Yeah, one thing I've come to accept, especially I think the early phases of this set, and maybe part of the reason why I haven't really started play testing really intensely right now, is I think I'm the perfect like test case for Ravensburger to just farm money from. I am not only a player of the game, but I am a collector, and I alluded to like the FOMO person, in the sense that like I'm searching for play sets, because I was definitely 6 months ago was of the mindset of like, will I play Diablo Devoted Herald? Maybe not, but I could. And if I choose, then I'll have it, right? Or the same thing with like Rapunzel, Gifted of Healing. Like I want to make sure I have it in the background just in case I want to play it. And that was something I was definitely going through, at least for sure, 6 months ago. I think we've alluded to it before, like we're not the group that like buys 4 cases and just goes through and to ensure that we have play sets of every legendary, so we ensure that we have everything we need with whatever deck we want to build. We just don't have that ability to do that based on what we want to commit to this game. We look for specific cards to fill in the specific decks that we want to run. And I think what I've started to learn over the course of the last couple of weeks is like in my core, I am a control player. So maybe focus on just getting the control-y cards and focus on getting those play sets. And then like Namari is the perfect example. Namari's definitely not an aggro card and is more so like a mid-range control card. And that's a perfect example where that FOMO may be a little bit more warranted in the sense that like that's a play set where I could actually feasibly see myself playing rather than an Emerald Devoted Herald where I'm not a discard player. Why did I need to get that play set, right? Which hands in the air, that's me. I did it. So like, that's I think what I'm starting to learn, and I think that's of the mindset that I am going to start transitioning to. Like focus on the 3 or 4 control-y mid-range control decks that I think are always going to be a part of that combination, aka anything with Sapphire, right? No, just kidding, but kind of not really. And just focus on continuing to build those sets. That's the new mindset that I have, but it's still unfortunate that those are the trendy decks right now. And I just got to work through it. But if anyone's looking for, if anyone's in the same boat, I wanted to bring up kind of my struggles with trying to get past the FOMO, because I'm sure I'm not the only one. And I'll join the party, or let's have the FOMO party together, because I am right there with you. But one thing we've noticed too with this holiday season is not only are we like excited for the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas in the United States, but you also start thinking into the next year. And so 2026 and what we want to see our New Year's resolutions to be, and specifically for today's conversation, the New Year's resolutions for start thinking about what we want for Lorcana, our wish list, so to speak. So we have some topics here of some wish lists that we put together for 2026 as Lorcana now dives into the new year, or just around the corner. So who wants to start? Let's start with you, Ryan. Why don't you pick one of them? And what's a wish list item for you moving into 2026 as we're kind of in the middle of the holiday season?
One thing that I want to see that's on my wish list for Lorcana in 2026 is just the iconic pairs go back to being thematic, and pairs of characters that I would expect to see paired up. Necessarily expect to see Hades and Ariel paired up. Don't get me wrong, artwork was incredible. Iconic pull rates are what it is. Hades is an unbelievably playable card, so that is driving prices through the roof for that card, so love that. I just have to say that Mickey and Minnie being an iconic, like truly like Disney IP iconic duo, and being printed as the iconic pairing for Fabled is a step above Ariel and Hades from Whispers in the Well. If everything else is equal, I'm still going to prefer having Mickey and Minnie as an iconic pair than Hades and Ariel. So iconic pairs that I'm looking forward to and hoping to see, especially with the introduction of Pixar, specifically is where my mind was focused when I was coming up with this list, are Buzz and Woody for Wilds Unknown. I think that would be an incredible introduction for Toy Story into the Disney Lorcana game. I would love to see Nemo and Dory paired up as an iconic duo if Finding Nemo ever finds its way into the game. And then a childhood favorite of mine, Monsters Inc. I would love to see Mike and Sully as an iconic duo if that IP ever comes into the Disney Lorcana game, which I think it would fit pretty well, if I gotta be honest. There are a lot of different, monsters with specific characteristics or powers that could be uniquely designed into card designs, and I think that would be really interesting to see the Monsters Inc. battling it out with the Mulan cards, and I think it'd just be really fun to see that happening. So that's one thing on my wish list for the 2026 Lorcana season. Do y'all have any other thematic iconic duos you would like to see moving into 2026?
I do. I don't know that this has been announced or not yet. Probably not. We're still way before like card announcements, but like it seems like Stitch is a big thing in the next set. It would be really cool to see Lilo and Stitch be the iconic of that set.
That's a really good poll. I think with Pixar, it provides a really good opportunity to get more kids in the game because I think kids resonate a little bit more, at least these days, a little bit more with those Pixar films. I think of Cars. I think Mater and Lightning McQueen would be a really good iconic duo for kids. At least my youngest is obsessed with Lightning McQueen. There's also an opportunity to get more adults with Pixar, because the other thing that Pixar has tended to do really, really well is for these kids' movies, they have a lot of adult humor one-liners within those films that the parents catch on. And I think one that resonated a lot with people, and I want to shout out the Lorcana Muses, because when Iconics were announced, that was about when we had them on our podcast. I think it was Stephanie thought of this, was joy and anxiety from Inside Out, Inside Out 2 specifically. That anxiety, that I think Inside Out 2 is one of my wife's favorite movies of recent Pixar films. And that would be one I think she would, if there was a time to ever get her in the game, it would be an Anxiety Enchanted or Iconic card. So Ravensburger, you'll have another one signed up if you print one of those. So I think those are some like a kid version and an adult version of what could be an iconic pair. So
I'll throw one more in, and this is probably pretty easy to say, but like even Daisy and Donald Duck would be really good. If there is but I think what we're also saying with this is there's so many good thematic duos, right? So that's why I think why it feels particularly head scratching when it's like Ariel and Hades from two totally separate franchises. It's kind of like doesn't feel like an iconic duo the same way that Mickey and Minnie did. And again, they didn't necessarily promise that would be a thing, that it would be like, oh, they have to be from the same franchise, or it's going to be a pair of cards that like has synergy to it in any type of way. But it does feel like they should do it that way. So I really hope that they're going to reset course and kind of go more towards that in the future. There are just so many good duos, right?
One more note before we move on to the next part of our wish list for Lorcana in 2026. Any listeners out there, I don't have the link ready for you, but there is a link out there that one of the creative directors for Ravensburger recently posted, I think today even, asking for feedback on Whispers in the Well experiences. So if you see that floating around on your Facebook algorithm or through your Instagram feed, or if you find a different content creator that has that link listed for you, please click on it, submit the feedback. You're not going to get anything for it except for potentially directing future decision making on card design, art design, those type of decisions that the Ravensburger team makes heading forward. The Ravensburger team has done a great job historically in the last year I've been involved in the game of receiving and actually listening to feedback and implementing strategies directly related in response to that feedback that they've received. So I think it's a great opportunity to get your voice heard and to let the Ravensburger team know what you liked, what you didn't like, what you're looking forward to, and what you're looking for in future sets too.
really good point, Ryan. I think this is a perfect example. Submitting your feedback on iconic duo options. This is a really good one and something I might take advantage of, knowing that announcement was made to provide that feedback, because there's not just Pixar. We alluded to a lot of Pixar ones, but like, Beast and Belle, Moana and Maui, like there are a lot of Elsa and Anna, even, like there are a lot of good iconic duos, and almost every movie has one in the
give me
Disney
Timon and
space.
Pumbaa.
Timon and Pumbaa too. That'd be really
awesome.
good. Yeah, so there are a lot of good options. We're just so excited for Pixar, as you can tell. I want to pull up the next one for my wish list of Lorcana 2026, and that I alluded to a little bit before. Wide meta. Continuing to have a very wide meta. I want to have 10 to 12 playable decks in the tier 1, tier 2, decks that have the ability, like realistically have the ability to win set championships. It felt bad, although we didn't play in any set champs for Fabled. we prepared for a DLC, so we can only imagine that the decks that won set champs were kind of what we prepared for when it came to DLC Milwaukee. But like, there were like 5 decks, let's be honest, like 5 like decks that took up 90% of the field, it felt like. And that was the biggest drawback from rotation was removing that very wide meta that I think had established itself post Hiram ban set 7 and into set 8. Specifically for me, Ruby, it's trending upwards. It's getting there. Ruby Amethyst has done very well, as we've seen in at least the early stages of Whispers in the Well. But let's continue to give Ruby a little bit more love. All I'm asking is, it doesn't have to be a full board wipe, maybe a semi-board wipe, just maybe to remove 2 or 3 characters at once. It doesn't have to be fully wide, because as we're starting to see, we just see a lot of people just keep things upright and not turn them sideways, and boards just get substantially large. And if you don't have a Strength or a Baby Zeus, you can't really get rid of those, or an Elsa Fifth Spirit to Force Exert, for example. You can't really get rid of those cards. So I think we need more like board wipe options or like semi-board wipe options in the game, and Ruby tends to be that color. So that's my wish list, is wide meta, and in order to do that, you need to pump up the love for Ruby. Let's hope it comes around 2026.
Yeah, Mack's just waiting for that Be Prepared reprint. Really, that's all we're hoping for.
Or Big Sisu. You know, I think I'd prefer the Big Sisu because there are a lot of minus strength options, and you get a character on board, and they reprinted all of the shift options. So it's just one card left that they have to do. They have the shift options already. They just need the bigger one.
Yeah, that's fair. I will say, Mac, you could just try playing blue-green again. They have a board wipe. They have multiple board wipes now. They have Spooky Sight. They have Under the Sea. They have Malicious, Mean, and Scary plus Big Prince Philip.
I think we've learned that I'm not a green player with our most recent adventures at Milwaukee. So green is something that I will prepare for my opponent to play. I don't think that's a combination that suits me very well. But you never say never. But I'm trying to hold back on my FOMO specifically for green.
That's fair. And I would second the wide meta, as I did earlier, that I do love a wide, healthy meta. 5 decks was pretty good, I would say, for a rotational set where they were down a bunch of cards, down to like, 800 or 1,000 playable cards in the pool of playables, a handful of those being reprints. And now with set 10, I think they've just exploded the power level and the deck options out there too. So I do think that it's getting wider and wider. I think by definition it's impossible to have that many tier 1 and tier 2 decks, just because a lot of that tiering is based on percentage of meta share, and if you have that many decks also all fighting for meta share, then nothing ever really rises to the top of tier 1 or tier 2. But that being said, I do think that there's plenty of viable options on the right day with the right matchups, more and with what feels like more agency than was available in Fabled, where Fabled very much felt like, how good is your luck stat? And if your luck stat is low, a la Nathaniel and his dice rolls, then you probably aren't going to win a whole lot of games. But if your luck stat is high and you find the right matchups and you hit the cards you're looking for, that is where the skill variation comes in, is that luck level. So I'm all for a wide meta. I love that being on our wish list for 2026.
Yeah, or maybe it'll just be doomed to mirrors all day long. I think another item I would love to call out that I've talked about before and remains at the top of my wish list from Ravensburger is to please bring back the runner-up playmat. I think this is something that was universally liked by the Lorcana community. I understand that there's more cost involved with that, so if we have to find some sort of way to offset that, I just think it offers up something that is very positive. I don't think anybody was like, oh man, the value of my first place mat is adversely affected because there's a runner-up mat. This stinks, right? Like, I think there are so many people out there, right, who've like worked hard all day, played really well, and, maybe they came a couple turns away from winning, but they got second. You should get more than what somebody who got 7th got from that, tournament. So I love that we've expanded the pricing for, from 4 cards to 8 cards. I think that's, good. More people are getting fun, shiny cardboard. That's usually a good thing, I think. Maybe not necessarily for value, but I think more people leave with a little bit more of a smile, right? But I think that has somewhat come at the cost of the top end pricing feeling as worthy of the performance, we'll call it, unless you get first place. So you can always lean on stores to like kick in more stuff and maybe make your decisions about which set champs you attend based on that. However, I just think Ravensburger could really step in here and help out the entire Lorcana community by just saying, hey, that mat that didn't have champion written on it that still looks really amazing and you'd probably love to have on your wall or to play with, we'll bring that back. I really hope it comes back. Well, I don't know. It probably won't, but it can remain at the top of my wish list in probably like my top 3 spots for the last year.
I think for like me, I've even like taken a step back in the sense that it doesn't have to be a playmat, but there needs to be tiered pricing, like of some sort, like something. And I've honestly slowly become more of the opinion of let's go back to 4 enchanted. So the 4 like semifinalists earn the enchanted. Top 8 then get something else. Like therefore it then increases the value and the drive for the enchanted again. Then your runner-up gets something else, playmat, what have you, doesn't really matter. And then obviously the champion gets the champion playmat as kind of standard, or what's become standard. To me, what's frustrating as I've started to think about it more and more over the last 2 sets is the fact that for set championships, like in their guidebook, in their rules, that incentivizes. Thank you. That was a struggle. Having as many people sign up as possible to get to a top 8, for example, or to have big fields, right? That's all they want, is to spread competition and spread like just the game in general by having as many people show up as possible, and to have it watered down or just pinpointed to only one person gets the benefit. It seems those 2 things don't align to me. You want as many people there, but sorry, it goes to only one person. That just, I don't know, something in my brain, it's not clicking in my brain. Maybe, I don't know if that's just me in general, or maybe other people have the same opinion, but something's not aligning up. And I think the tiered pricing is the way to do it. And to be honest, I really don't care about the promo that I sign up for. A lot of these stores do this, like, 2 packs for signing up anyways, so at least you get something. I know they were trying to maybe filter that into the kit as well. But I think to me, like, getting 2 packs still like served its purpose for going, and then it just added benefit for going and trying to win and be competitive. But yeah, I agree. It doesn't have to be playmat. Tiered pricing or I don't know, something to spark the competition more for those more competitive players. I get that may alienate other non-competitive players, but it's just I think there's a better balance there that we're just not experiencing. So that's my opinion. Yeah. That's my hot take.
Well said, Mack. And I think like that's really what I'm looking forward to, is like what makes sense in my brain is tiered pricing. So the better you do, the more things you are earning based on your performance. I think that just makes sense in general. So, I think, we'll see how it goes. I know, for me, I'm definitely excited to get back into the set champs scene after missing out on that during the Fabled piece of our experience, right? Because we were focusing on the DLC. Set champs are just such a great way to connect with the community that you're in. And going to a couple of them, you get to see a couple different sets of people as well. Even if you don't necessarily perform all that great at them, it does give you some opportunity to test your chops and see how you do.
I will go on record and say that I like top 8 enchanteds. I would not like to see that shrink to 4. I do think that maybe I'm just used to having just like second place get something and first place get something extra, but like the gameplay from top 8 to top 4 to top 2 doesn't seem as like drastic as a drop off as it needs to be. I would love tiered all the way through. I think that's a great idea. One thing that comes to my mind, that if playmats are totally off the table, then I think maybe you offer 2 pins for each set champs in each set champs kit as well, where first place and second place each get a pin in addition to the rest of the prizing that's there, to have that like tiered structure in place. And maybe that can become a top 4, but I think then you're kind of approaching the price point of having a second playmat anyways, but even just 2 pins. And I think that obviously if you've heard, then maybe this isn't news to you, but they were announcing that the future organized play kits will not have pins, I believe, if I recall correctly. They're moving to a sticker format. And so I think that pin, and there's a penchant for pins in trading card communities in general and collector communities in general. And I think that the pin would be a great way to kind of bridge that gap between first place and second place prize structure. And maybe it's just 1 pin in the organized play kit, and your second place gets a pin and your first place gets a playmat. And so so be it. But at least there's some additional then benefit for getting into the final match and playing those extra 2 hours or 2+ hours of gameplay to get there. I think that would be really cool to see. And that's just one like idea I had to kind of create an alternative tiered prize structure without just harping on the same point of bring back the playmats, otherwise we riot kind of situation. But I think pins would be a great middle ground, because I do think that there's a high interest in pins in the community as well.
Ryan, I love that call out. I think pins are highly collectible, and making it unique to someone getting second place would be actually, like, there would be value in that. Like, you would feel, like, it would feel like a good consolation prize for getting second place and having performed really well all day, even if you didn't get the champion mat. I think with the removal of them from the organized play kit, yeah, nailed it. That would be so cool. I love that idea.
Yeah, that is great. That's the first time I think either one of us, me and Nathaniel, have heard that idea from you. So well played. I don't know if you just brought that off the cuff, but if you've been sitting on that for a while, thanks for bringing it to the pod, and I really appreciate it. But to avoid all doom and gloom from what feels like for this wish list, like, oh, Ravensburger, please do this, please do that. One thing that they're starting to do that we've noticed, the final wishlist item for at least today, is the expanded DLC stuff that we're starting to see. Milwaukee, I think, was kind of just like the first stepping stone into just getting Season 2 kicked off, at least for North America. But we're starting to see like people listening. Like, one thing in Milwaukee, they didn't have Friday side events, and I think they're trying to expand a lot more side events for Richmond, moving up from a North America side. I believe there's Friday things. I don't want to say the wrong thing, so please correct me if there isn't. But yeah, Ryan, go ahead. I think you know a lot more about.
There's a huge number of Friday side events. So they're making Friday like a full side event day, and they're having like a main a main event, if you will, on Friday as well, with substantial prizing for success in performance in that Friday event as well. They're having another huge event on Saturday as alongside the main event. There's another like secondary side event main event that they're putting on as well, again with substantial prizing tied to it from the prize wall, and then doing the same thing on Sunday that they did in Milwaukee with a substantial side event as main side event as well, with again tiered prize structure all the way up through 7 wins, in addition to prize tickets that you would win along the way as well. So they definitely are expanding the side event structure for Richmond, which is a huge bonus, and kudos to the Pastimes and Ravensburger teams for collaborating and bringing that to fruition.
Yeah, and I know there was, when they were first announced during Worlds, people were kind of annoyed that the number of North American DLCs went from 6 to 3, and rightfully so. People were frustrated. When you're trying to build your community, why would you take away from like 2 of your biggest communities in Europe and North America? But as we've talked about before, if you want to be global, you need to start expanding to global markets. That's just kind of the way that business works. But something that it might not be perfect and it might not be full DLC, but not only do you have the side events, but like these CCQs that we're seeing in Europe and North America, there are other options that at least from the competitive scene side, and I know that's not everyone's flavor, but like from the competitive scene, they're making efforts to have people qualify for North American Continentals. Just more options out there for you to qualify for those, especially at the mid-tier events where you see anywhere from 300 to 600 players, as opposed to a 2,000 player DLC. I guess the benefit of the DLC, right, is if you win, you get a full-on Worlds, ticket, as opposed to a CCQ, you just go to Continentals. But still, they're making. I think they're trying to expand the avenues that what people felt like they once had with 6 DLCs season 1. They're trying to expand it to those options to at least match that in every way they can with the DLC competitive scene, and that's something that I think we need to call out from a positive side. Like, Ravensburger's listening. They're also listening to card feedback. The only problem, as we've alluded to before, is that, like, sorry guys, card games, you really can't print new cards on a whim. You need to wait 6 to 8 months for that new card. So we're starting to see that with, like, promo cards. The Maleficent Dragon, I think, was a big hit. And when a year ago, everyone was kind of down on all the promo cards for set champs. So it's like they're listening, and I think that's something to take note of. Please continue that, Ravensburger and the Lorcana competitive side. Like, that's our wish list. Is you're doing a lot of positive things there, and that needs to be called out.
I think one other positive point to add to that, Mac, is the expansion of the main event fields as well. Not for the North America events, because they were limited on space, highly limited on space with the venues they were able to book when Past Times was signed on to run the DLCs in North America. But in Europe, they were able to expand the DLC fields for the next 2 events from 2048 to 4,096 players. They got creative, it seems like, for, I think Ghent is the next one, where they're actually doing like a main event first 8 rounds on Friday, a main event first 8 rounds on Saturday with 2 totally separate player pools. So 2,048 players on Friday, a unique set of 2,048 players on Saturday, and then everybody comes together on Sunday for the top cut rounds, and that's when they finish out the tournament on Sunday that way. And I think that's a huge bonus, that they heard the feedback from the first round of ticket sales, and they said, what can we do? And they were able to find a creative solution to double the field for the next 2 European DLCs. They attempted the same feat here in North America, and again, like I said, they were limited on space, which I get. I mean, they have to book these venues, and they had to make decisions at the moment, and then the venues need to fill their space too. So they probably weren't waiting around for somebody to come along and say, hey, actually, we need to double our size of a booking. Oh, but we don't have any space available because we already gave it to other people. So I get that, and it does sound like they're keeping that in mind as they move into season 3 of DLCs. So, quarter 3, quarter 4, 2026, I would hope, and I'm hopeful, that we're going to see even larger DLC events for those time periods for players that are interested in joining the DLCs, and they're planning to book bigger venues, they're planning to make sure there's hotel accommodations, or trying to get hotel accommodations, I believe. It's at least on their radar of things to consider, because that's been a constant question from the community as well. They're listening to feedback, and I love that they're responsive, and I love that they're actually exploring these options, and they're making great changes throughout the whole process. And it's all a learning process. Everyone's new to this whole thing in terms of this specific trading card game, this specific trading card community, and the specific way that the Disney Lorcana challenges want to be run and should be run. And I'm hopeful for the future, because it looks really exciting, and so I'm really excited that is on our wish list, and I'm really excited for that to be checked off of our wish list as 2026 progresses.
So on that note about the fact that they've expanded them, I think something on my wish list is that we get to run it back at least once to a big event in 2026, the 3 of us, at least one. It would be great to get to, one of these, like we've talked a lot about these mid-tier events. It'd be really cool to go do something like that as well. But even if there's a way that we could make like indie work or something, it would be really, really cool. So I've still got that in kind of the back of my brain as something that, again, even if I have to fall on the sword and take the attendee badge and be the one who doesn't get the competitor badge, I'd still love the experience. So I hope as these continue to expand themselves and there's more options to go play at big events, I hope that we do have the opportunity to go do that again as a trio, and maybe lots more from our community. We were really lucky with Milwaukee. Felt like close to 100 Minnesotans there. That was really, really cool.
Yeah, you and me both, sir. That was a really fun experience in Milwaukee, and I can only hope that we could do that again in 2026, because we all know it. This game has the hook set pretty deep in all three of us, so I don't think we're going away anytime soon. So we're here to stay for sure. That being said, our goal was to make it around an hour this week, and we did it. So I'm going to put a wrap on this show. Thank you so much for joining me, fellas. You can find our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the audio version on YouTube, and fingers crossed, the video version also on YouTube. Let's hope it uploads appropriately here. Thanks for joining me, fellas. And without further ado, let's get the duck out of here.